The afternoon sun filtered through the smudged windows of Honeybee Bakery as Amara Holt stood at the counter, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry, but I need to cancel the birthday cake order for Saturday." Her fingers trembled as she clutched her purse, knuckles whitening with the effort of holding herself together. "Cancel? But Miss Holt, we've already started on the baseball design. Jayden's turning 8, right?" May Turner, the bakery owner, peered over her reading glasses with concern. She had known Amara since high school and had watched her struggle as a single mother since Jayden's father walked out 3 years ago. "I know, and I'm so sorry. Something came up with work, and I just..." Amara's voice cracked. She couldn't bring herself to say that her hours had been cut at the hospital where she worked as a nurse's aide, or that the choice had come down to the cake or the electricity bill. "I'll still pay the deposit. I know it's short notice." What neither woman noticed was the tall black man in the corner booth, his attention caught by the quiet exchange. Micah Langston had stopped at the small-town bakery on a whim, while his driver filled up the car at the gas station across the street. Dressed in a charcoal suit that cost more than most people's monthly salary, he seemed out of place among the gingham curtains and faded linoleum. The tech billionaire was passing through on his way to a conference, his mind usually occupied with stock prices and acquisition deals. But something about the woman's posture, shoulders rounded forward as if bearing an invisible weight, made him listen more carefully. Her beautiful brown skin caught the afternoon light. Her natural hair pulled back in a simple bun, her face showing the exhaustion of someone who worked too hard for too little. "Don't worry about the deposit, honey," May said, reaching across the counter to squeeze Amara's hand. "You can use it another time. Is Jaden very disappointed?" "He doesn't know yet," Amara whispered, wiping quickly at her eyes. "I'll figure something out. Maybe cupcakes from the grocery store. I just hate to let him down again." Micah watched as she left the bakery, her head held high despite the obvious distress. Through the window, he saw her climb into an aging sedan, sit motionless for a moment, then rest her forehead against the steering wheel. "Tough situation," Micah said casually as May approached to refill his coffee. "Oh, you have no idea," May sighed. "Amara works harder than anyone I know. 2 jobs, raising that sweet boy alone. Jayden's been talking about this birthday party for months. Baseball theme. He's crazy about it." Micah nodded, his coffee forgotten. At 42, he had more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. His charitable foundation donated millions each year, but it had been ages since he'd connected with the human impact of financial struggle. "What kind of cake was it going to be?" he asked suddenly. "Baseball field design. Green frosting for the grass, white for the bases. Jayden's name on the pitcher's mound." May's eyes brightened. "I was going to make little fondant players, too. That boy deserves something special." Micah pulled out his wallet. "I'd like to pay for the cake and whatever else would make a great party." May stared at him, recognition slowly dawning. "You're just someone who remembers what it's like to look forward to a birthday." He interrupted with a gentle smile. "My mother worked 3 jobs. There were years when a cake was a luxury we couldn't afford." Within minutes, the plan expanded. Not just the cake, but a complete party at the local baseball field. Micah made calls while May contacted Amara's best friend to coordinate. By the time he left the bakery, Micah had set aside his conference plans for the weekend. 3 days later, Jayden Holt woke up on his 8th birthday expecting little more than his mother's traditional pancake breakfast. The past few months had been full of disappointments. Baseball camp canceled, their planned move to a better apartment delayed, his mother's increasingly exhausted smiles. "Ready for your birthday surprise?" Amara asked, her eyes sparkling in a way Jayden hadn't seen in months. "Pancakes?" he guessed, already grateful for the small tradition. "Better. Get dressed. Baseball gear today." Jayden's heart raced as they drove toward the town's baseball field. He spotted balloons tied to the fence and a small gathering of people. "Mom, what's happening?" Amara simply smiled, emotion making it impossible to speak. When they parked, Jayden recognized his friends from school, his little league teammates, and several adults from the neighborhood. "Surprise!" they shouted as he approached. The baseball field had been transformed. A tent housed a table laden with food and drinks. Baseball-themed decorations hung everywhere. Jayden's friends rushed forward, baseball mitts already on their hands. "We're having your party at a real baseball field," Amara explained, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to spill. Someone very kind wanted to make your birthday special." Jayden was speechless, his eyes wide as he took in the scene, especially the magnificent cake centerpiece, exactly like the one he described to his mother months ago. What Jayden didn't immediately notice was the tall man standing off to the side, watching with an unexpected lump in his throat. Micah Langston had spent billions on business deals without blinking, but the pure joy on this child's face affected him in ways he couldn't articulate. The day unfolded with impromptu baseball games, presents, and food. Through it all, Micah remained in the background, speaking briefly with Amara to explain his impulse at the bakery. "I can't possibly thank you enough," Amara said, watching Jayden run the bases with abandon, his brown face flushed with excitement. "You don't need to," Micah replied simply. "Sometimes life deals unfair hands. I've been fortunate enough to receive more than my share of good cards." As the afternoon light began to fade, Jayden approached Micah, whom he'd been eyeing curiously throughout the day. "Mom says you're the reason we had this amazing party," Jayden said, looking up at the billionaire with unabashed directness. Micah crouched down to meet the boy at eye level. "Your mom is the real hero. I just pitched in for one day. She's batting for you every single day." Jayden considered this with the seriousness only an 8-year-old can muster. Then, with the unpredictable impulse of childhood, he threw his arms around the billionaire's neck in a fierce hug. "This was the best day ever," he whispered. Micah froze, then carefully returned the embrace, something shifting in his chest, a wall crumbling that he hadn't even realized he'd built. The Monday following Jayden's birthday celebration, Micah sat in his executive suite overlooking the Charlotte skyline, unable to focus on the quarterly reports. His mind kept drifting back to the baseball field, to Jayden's uninhibited joy and Amara's grateful tears. "Harper, do we have any programs that directly help working families?" he asked his assistant. "Not just donations to large charities, but something more personal." Harper blinked in surprise. "The foundation handles our philanthropic work, but it's mostly large grants to established organizations." "Let's change that," Micah said decisively. "Set up a meeting with the foundation team and find out if we have contacts at Mercy Hospital in Maplewood." What Micah couldn't explain was the persistent image of Amara's determined face as she tried to cancel that cake. It reminded him of his own mother, who had cleaned houses and waited tables to provide for him after his father's death. Later that week, Amara's supervisor at the hospital called her into the office. With her stomach in knots, Amara prepared for more bad news about reduced hours. "Amara, I've received a rather unusual request." Dr. Nia Roberts began. The Langston Foundation has approached the hospital about establishing a new nursing scholarship program. They specifically asked if we had staff interested in advancing their medical education. Amara stared blankly. That's wonderful for the hospital, but the foundation representative mentioned you by name. The room seemed to tilt. Me? There must be some mistake. No mistake. Apparently, Mr. Langston himself requested that you be informed of this opportunity. Dr. Roberts slid a folder across the desk. Full tuition for an RN program, plus a stipend for living expenses. They're calling it the Second Chance Scholarship. Amara's hands trembled as she opened the folder. Inside was an official letter from the Langston Foundation, along with program details that seemed tailored specifically to her situation. Classes scheduled around her existing work hours, childcare assistance, mentoring support. The generosity was overwhelming, but also discomforting. Why her? That evening, as Jayden completed his homework at the kitchen table of their small apartment, Amara paced. The scholarship papers spread before her. What's wrong, Mom? You keep walking back and forth? Amara smiled despite her turmoil. Just thinking, buddy, about something good, potentially, but complicated. Jayden nodded sagely. Like when Coach says I have great potential but complicated mechanics. Amara laughed, the tension breaking momentarily. Something like that. The next day, she found herself standing once again in Honeybee Bakery. May, I need to ask you something about Mr. Langston. May smiled knowingly. I was wondering when you'd come by. That man was quite taken with you and Jayden. Amara blushed. Not like that. He's established a scholarship at the hospital, and somehow my name was specifically mentioned. It feels, I don't know, targeted. I'm grateful, but also confused. May wiped her hands on her apron. He asked a lot of questions about you after you left that day. Not in a creepy way, she added hastily. He seemed genuinely concerned. Said something about seeing his own mother in you. His mother? Apparently she raised him alone, worked multiple jobs. He said watching you reminded him of what she went through. This revelation shifted something in Amara's perspective. Not charity then, but empathy born of shared experience. 2 weeks after Jayden's birthday, Amara was startled by a knock at her apartment door. Opening it revealed May from the bakery, holding a large envelope. Special delivery, May announced with a conspiratorial smile. Inside was a brief note on expensive stationery. Ms. Holt, I hope you'll consider the scholarship opportunity. It's not charity, it's investment in someone who clearly has the determination and heart that our healthcare system desperately needs. No strings attached, no obligations. Your decision entirely. Separately, Jayden left quite an impression on me. Enclosed is a season pass for the Charlotte Knights home games. My driver can arrange transportation. Again, no obligations. Simply an opportunity if you choose to accept it. With respect and admiration, Micah Langston. Amara sat heavily on the sofa, the note in one hand and the season tickets in the other. Well? May prompted. Amara shook her head. I don't know. Why us? There are thousands of struggling families. What makes us special? May considered this. Maybe you're not special, no offense. Maybe you're just the one he happened to see. Sometimes being seen is enough. That night after Jayden went to bed, Amara made her decision. She would accept the scholarship but decline the baseball tickets. Education was an investment in their future. The tickets felt too personal. She crafted a careful email to the foundation, accepting the scholarship with profound thanks, explaining her decision about the tickets, and attaching a photo of Jaden's thank you card. The response came within minutes. "The scholarship is yours. Congratulations. As for the tickets, I understand your hesitation. But please reconsider. Not for yourself, but for Jayden. I grew up without such opportunities. Perhaps one game is a trial. No ulterior motives, I assure you." ML. Amara stared at her phone screen, conflicted emotions swirling. What exactly was happening here? After 3 weeks of polite refusal, Amara finally relented to Jayden's pleas. Now sitting in premium box seats behind home plate at a Charlotte Knights game, she had to admit the experience was magical. "Mom, did you see that? 3-run homer." Jayden turned to her, his eyes wide with wonder. "These seats are amazing." As Amara raised her phone to capture Jayden's beaming face, a discreet cough from their left caught her attention. "Excuse me," said an elegant older black woman with silver-streaked natural hair, wearing a Knight's jacket. "Would you like me to take a photo of both of you together?" "That would be wonderful. Thank you," Amara replied, handing over her phone. The woman snapped several pictures, then returned the device with a warm smile. "Your son is having quite the time. First professional game," Jayden answered before Amara could speak. "We're here because Mr. Micah gave us tickets. He's a billionaire who helped when Mom had to cancel my birthday cake." Amara flushed with embarrassment at Jayden's artless explanation. The woman's eyes crinkled with amusement. "No need for embarrassment. Micah has always had a good eye for recognizing worthy investments." She extended her hand. "Celeste Langston, Micah's mother." Amara nearly choked. "Mrs. Langston, I had no idea you would be here." Celeste waved dismissively. "Micah doesn't know either. When he mentioned he'd given tickets to a nursing student and her baseball-loving son, I was curious." She winked at Jayden. "Wanted to see who caught my son's attention." When Jayden dashed off to buy a foam finger, Celeste turned to Amara with characteristic directness. "He's overstepping, isn't he? My son." Amara hesitated. "I am incredibly grateful for the opportunities Mr. Langston has provided. The scholarship will change our lives." "But," Celeste prompted, "but I can't help wondering why us? Why me? It feels personal in a way that makes me uneasy." Celeste nodded thoughtfully. "Micah lost his father when he was 6. I worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat. No time for baseball games then. He built his empire from nothing. But success came at a cost. He's brilliant with technology, hopeless with people." Celeste continued, her voice softening. "When he called me about your situation, it was the first time in years I'd heard genuine emotion in his voice. Whatever his reasons, they're sincere." She fixed Amara with a penetrating look. "But you're right to maintain boundaries. Kindness shouldn't create obligation." Later that week, Amara began her first classes in the nursing program. The rigorous schedule combined with her continued work at the hospital left little time for overthinking the Langston situation. She threw herself into her studies with determination. Nearly a month passed without any direct contact from Micah, though the foundation staff checked in regularly. Jayden faithfully sent handwritten letters after each night's game they attended. Then, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, Amara entered the hospital break room to find her co-workers gathered around the television. "What's going on?" she asked. "Langston's new healthcare initiative," answered Dr. Roberts, gesturing to the screen where Micah was conducting a press conference. "He's just pledged $50 million to improve rural and underserved hospitals nationwide." Amara moved closer to the television, studying the man who had so dramatically altered her family's trajectory. The Langston Second Chance Initiative will focus on both infrastructure improvements and personnel development, Micah was explaining. We've already piloted a nursing scholarship program that's showing promising results. A reporter raised a hand. Mr. Langston, what inspired this change? For a brief moment, Micah's composure faltered. Sometimes we need reminders of what truly matters. Healthcare isn't just about technology. It's about people. People who make hard choices, who sacrifice daily to care for others. His gaze seemed to look beyond the press corps. This initiative honors my mother, who worked as a hospital aide while raising me, and every parent who has ever stood at a counter making impossible choices between necessities and small joys. Amara felt her cheeks warm as several co-workers turned toward her. He's talking about you, whispered someone from radiology. You're the inspiration for a $50 million initiative. Overwhelmed, Amara slipped out of the break room. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I hope I didn't overstep by mentioning the scholarship program. Your privacy remains paramount. ML. Amara hesitated before responding. The initiative sounds wonderful. Many families will benefit. Jaden and I enjoyed the night's games. Especially meeting your mother. The response came immediately. My mother was there? She introduced herself? Lovely woman. There was a longer pause before. She's always been my best advisor and worst meddler. May I call you? There's something I'd like to discuss regarding the foundation. I'm at work until 6. After Jaden's bedtime at 8:30 would be best. That evening, Amara sat at her small kitchen table, nervously awaiting Micah's call. When her phone rang precisely at 8:30, she took a deep breath before answering. Ms. Holt, thank you for taking my call. It's Amara, and please call me by my first name. Amara, then. I'm Micah, not Mr. Langston. He paused. I wanted to discuss expanding the scholarship program based on your experience so far. Your feedback would be invaluable. For the next hour, they talked about the practical challenges of pursuing education while parenting alone. Amara found herself speaking candidly about childcare difficulties and scheduling conflicts. Micah listened intently, asking thoughtful questions. You should be consulting with education experts, Amara said finally. Not a nursing student who's only been in the program for a few weeks. Experts provide theory. You provide reality, Micah replied. That's far more valuable. Their conversation shifted gradually to more personal topics. Jaden's baseball aspirations, Micah's latest tech project, books they'd both enjoyed. By the call's end, Amara realized with surprise that nearly 3 hours had passed, and that she had laughed more than she had in months. I'd like to continue this conversation, Micah said as they prepared to hang up. Perhaps in person, if you're comfortable with that. Amara hesitated, aware of crossing into unfamiliar territory. I'd be happy to help with the foundation. Autumn painted Maplewood in brilliant hues as September gave way to October. In the 6 months since Jaden's birthday, life had transformed for the Holts. Amara's nursing program was challenging but rewarding. Jaden was thriving, and their financial situation no longer teetered on the edge of crisis. What had begun as a purely professional relationship with Micah had evolved into something neither had anticipated. Their first in-person meeting, coffee to discuss scholarship improvements, had led to dinner the following week. That dinner had somehow turned into a regular occurrence, with Micah making the 2-hour drive from Charlotte whenever his schedule permitted. Mom, is Mr. Micah coming tonight? Jaden asked, looking up from his homework. Over the months, Micah had become a fixture in their lives, bringing a stability that had been missing. "Yes, he's joining us for dinner," Amara replied, checking the lasagna in the oven. "He mentioned bringing those astronomy books you were talking about last time." Jayden's face lit up. "Awesome. Do you think he'd help me build the solar system model too?" Micah arrived precisely at 6, carrying not only the promised astronomy books, but also a small telescope. The books explain the concepts, but nothing beats seeing the real thing, he explained as Jayden launched himself into an enthusiastic greeting. Watching them interact, Micah patiently answering Jayden's rapid-fire questions about Jupiter's moons, Amara felt a complicated warmth spread through her chest. For a man who claimed to be hopeless with people, Micah had shown a remarkable gift for connecting with her son. Later, after Jayden had reluctantly gone to bed, Amara and Micah settled on the small balcony of her apartment, mugs of tea in hand. "The foundation board approved all your suggested changes to the scholarship program," Micah said quietly. "The child care stipend increase, the mentorship network, the emergency fund, everything. We're expanding to 5 more hospitals next month." Amara nodded, pride mingling with sadness. "That's wonderful. Those changes will make such a difference." "But," Micah prompted, attuned now to the nuances of her tone. She hesitated. "I'm just realizing that as the program expands, you won't need my input as much. These dinners, these conversations, they'll naturally come to an end." Micah set down his mug, turning to face her directly. "Is that what you think this is? A consulting relationship?" "Isn't it? At least that's how it started." "Amara." His voice had a gentle intensity that made her meet his eyes. "I drive 2 hours each way, multiple times a week to see you and Jayden. I've rescheduled board meetings, delegated critical projects, and turned down speaking engagements, all to eat lasagna at your kitchen table and help an 8-year-old with his homework." Her breath caught. "Why?" "Because this," he gestured between them, "is the first real thing I've felt in years. Maybe ever." The silence between them hummed with possibility. Amara had been hurt before, had learned the hard way that fairy tales rarely came true for single mothers working paycheck to paycheck. Yet here was Micah Langston, saying words she'd stopped believing she would ever hear again. "I'm scared," she admitted finally. "Not just for me, but for Jayden. He's already so attached to you. If this doesn't work, I understand the stakes," Micah said softly. "I've never been a father figure before. Never wanted to be, truthfully, until I met Jayden. Until I met you." Their conversation was interrupted by Amara's phone ringing, the hospital calling her in for an emergency shift, reality reasserting itself. As Micah prepared to leave, he paused at the door. "Think about what I said. We can take this as slowly as you need." 6 months after a canceled birthday cake had brought them together, Micah and Amara sat side by side on bleachers at Jayden's baseball field, watching him practice with his team. "He's getting better," Micah observed as Jayden connected with the ball. "The coaching helps, and the practice field you funded for the league." Micah shrugged off her gratitude. Small investment, significant returns. Amara turned to study his profile. "Is that how you see us? An investment?" He met her gaze, his expression serious. "The best I've ever made, but not in the way you mean." He reached for her hand. "You and Jayden showed me what I'd been missing while building my empire: purpose, connection, joy in simple things." They sat in comfortable silence, watching Jayden run bases. The past 6 months had brought challenges as they navigated their evolving relationship. balancing Amara's fierce independence with Micah's instinct to solve problems with money, integrating their vastly different worlds, building Jayden's trust. "I have something for you," Micah said suddenly, reaching into his jacket pocket. "Not what you might think," he added quickly. "That conversation is for later, when you're ready." He handed her an envelope. Inside, Amara found the deed to a modest house a few blocks from her apartment. "Micah, I can't accept this." "It's not a gift," he corrected gently. "It's an investment property owned by the foundation, designated as housing for scholarship recipients. You'd be the program administrator, living on site to mentor future students. Salary commensurate with the position." Amara narrowed her eyes. "You created an entire housing program just to give me a house without making me feel like a charity case?" Micah had the grace to look slightly abashed. "The program is legitimate. We've been planning it for months. And the house just happens to have 3 bedrooms and a backyard perfect for a telescope?" "Functional requirements," he replied with mock seriousness before his expression softened. "I want to give you and Jaden the world, Amara. But I'm learning that what matters most is being part of that world with you. However, you'll have me." As Jaden jogged toward them, face flushed with happiness, Amara made her decision. "We accept," she said, squeezing Micah's hand. "The position and everything that comes with it." Jaden reached them breathless. "Did you see my hit? Coach says I have a natural swing." "We saw," Micah confirmed, making room on the bench between them. "Outstanding form." As Jaden launched into a detailed analysis of his performance, Micah caught Amara's eye over the boy's head. The look that passed between them held a promise. A family formed not by blood, but by choice, of second chances embraced, of a future brighter than either could have imagined that day in Honeybee Bakery when a canceled cake had changed everything. Friends, if this story touched your heart, please hit that subscribe button and join our Soul Live Stories family. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that kindness is never wasted. Sometimes the person you help today becomes the family you love tomorrow. Sometimes a canceled birthday cake leads to a lifetime of joy. And sometimes, when you're brave enough to accept a second chance, you find exactly what your heart has been searching for all along.